Hello, I'm Jake, 22. This was supposed to be just a joke. I swear it was never meant to spiral into whatever it became. I'm just a guy who likes a good laugh, maybe too much sometimes. I'm not a troublemaker, not really, but my buddies have a way of pulling me into their dumb ideas. And that summer day on a California beach with the sun blasting and the ocean roaring, I walked right into one of those ideas like an idiot chasing a shiny object. It was late July and the beach was packed. Santa Monica, the kind of place where you can't find a square foot of sand with someone's towel or cooler on it. The air smelled like sunscreen, salt water, and fried food from the pier. Seagulls screeched overhead, diving for drop fries. Music blasted from a dozen portable speakers, a mix of hip-hop and reggaeton clashing with the crash of waves. I was there with my crew, 5 of us guys I've known since high school back in Fresno. We'd driven down for the weekend, rented a cheap Airbnb, and planned to spend 2 days soaking up sun chasing girls and pretending we were cooler than we were. Typical stuff. We set up near the volleyball nets, a spot close enough to the water to feel the breeze, but far enough to avoid getting our stuff soaked. The sand was hot under my feet, and I could feel it sneaking into my flip-flops. We'd been tossing a volleyball around, half-assing a game, mostly just yelling and laughing when someone missed a serve. My buddy Ryan, the loudest of the group, was shirtless, showing off a tan he definitely got from a bottle. "Yo, Jake," he called, spiking the ball into the sand. "You going to play or just stand there looking pretty?" I flipped him off, grinning, and grabbed a burger from the cooler. It was half cold, but I didn't care. The day was perfect, blue sky, girls in bikinis walking by, and that summer vibe where nothing feels serious. We sprawled out on our towels, cracking open sodas and passing around a bag of chips. That's when Ryan, who's always got some scheme brewing, leaned in with a glint in his eye. "You guys ever hear about the changing room legend?" he said, lowering his voice like he was telling a ghost story. We groaned. Ryan's legends were usually just excuses to do something stupid. "What now?" I asked, taking a bite of my burger. He smirked, pointing toward the wooden changing rooms about 50 yards away near the boardwalk. "They say he started dragging it out. There's a spot by the women's changing room where you can hear interesting conversations, but you gotta get close, like real close." The guys laughed already, knowing where this was going. I rolled my eyes. "You're full of it, man." But Ryan wasn't done. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Here's the deal. One of us pretends to be blind, right? Gets a stick, some shades, the whole deal. You stand near the changing rooms looking all innocent, and boom, nobody suspects a thing. We film it, post it on the group chat, laugh our asses off later." The guys were already cackling, slapping each other's shoulders. Matt, the quiet one, shook his head but couldn't hide his grin. "That's messed up," he said. Ryan shrugged. "It's harmless, just a prank. Who's in?" They all looked at me because of course they did. I'm the guy who says no but ends up doing it anyway. "Come on, Jake," Ryan said, tossing me a pair of cheap sunglasses from his bag. "You've got the face for it, innocent, trustworthy." I hesitated. It was a dumb idea, no question. Standing near the women's changing room, pretending to be blind, that's the kind of thing that gets you kicked off the beach or worse. But the guys were egging me on, and the sun was high, and I was 22, full of that stupid confidence that makes you think you can get away with anything. "Fine," I said, snatching the sunglasses, "but if I get arrested, you're bailing me out." They cheered like I just won a gold medal. I told myself it would be quick, 5 minutes, maybe 10. Then I'd ditch the act and we'd go back to volleyball. No harm, no foul. We started prepping like it was a covert mission. Ryan handed me a stick he'd found near a trash can, a piece of driftwood worn smooth by the ocean. "Your cane," he said, barely holding back laughter. I put on the sunglasses dark enough to hide my eyes, but not so dark I couldn't see. Matt tied a bandana around my wrist, saying it would sell the look. We practiced in the sand, me tapping the stick and shuffling my feet like I was feeling my way around. "Slower," Ryan coached, filming on his phone. "You got to look lost, not drunk." The guys were doubled over, snorting as I stumbled dramatically, nearly tripping over a cooler. "Oscar-worthy," Matt said, clapping. I flipped them off again, but I was laughing too. It felt like a game, nothing serious. As we were messing around, I caught a glimpse of someone running along the shore, maybe 100 yards out. A woman, late 30s, maybe jogging with a steady stride, her ponytail swinging. She had this athletic build, strong but not bulky, and even from a distance, I could tell she carried herself with purpose. Her eyes scanned the beach sharp like she missed nothing. I didn't think much of it then, just another runner enjoying the morning, but something about her stuck with me, the way she moved, confident but not showy. I shook it off, turning back to the guys. "All right," I said, adjusting the sunglasses. "Let's get this over with." I split off from the group, stick in hand, heart beating a little faster than I'd admit. The plan was simple: walk toward the changing rooms, linger for a minute, maybe mutter something about being lost if anyone asked. Ryan was supposed to film from a distance, keeping it subtle. The beach was still buzzing, kids screaming, waves crashing, a guy playing guitar under a palm tree. I tapped the stick on the ground, keeping my steps slow, my head tilted like I was listening for cues. The sunglasses hid my eyes, but I could see just fine, scanning the sand for towels or coolers to avoid. The changing rooms were up ahead, a low wooden structure with a faded sign, women's on one side, men's on the other. A few people milled around, some girls rinsing sand off their feet, a mom herding kids. I kept my distance, maybe 10 feet, close enough to look casual but not creepy. At least that was the idea. I was almost there, tapping the stick, when I misjudged my path. My foot caught on something, a bag maybe, and I stumbled, not enough to fall, but enough to look like an idiot. I straightened up, muttering, "Sorry, sorry," keeping up the act. That's when I felt someone behind me. "You okay?" A woman's voice said, calm but firm. I turned, and there she was, the runner from before, standing a few feet away, a towel draped over her shoulder. Up close, she was striking tan skin hair, tied high, eyes sharp enough to cut through my sunglasses. She was maybe 38, with this quiet confidence that made me feel like I'd already messed up. Her towel had fallen in the sand when I bumped into her, and she was holding it now, brushing it off, watching me. I froze, stick in hand, my dumb plan suddenly feeling a lot dumber. The towel had hit the sand, and I felt my stomach lurch, like I just missed a step on a staircase. The woman, the runner, stood there, her sharp eyes locked on me through my dark sunglasses. I was still gripping that stupid driftwood stick, trying to play it cool, but my heart was hammering. "Sorry," I mumbled, bending down to grab her towel, keeping up the act. I fumbled a bit, letting the stick tap the ground like I was feeling my way. She beat me to it, snatching the towel up and brushing off the sand with quick, precise movements. "You okay?" she asked again, her voice steady but with an edge, like she was sizing me up. I nodded, tilting my head slightly, hoping I looked convincing. "Yeah, I just lost my bearings," I said, keeping my tone soft, a little uncertain, like someone who couldn't see where he was going. She straightened, draping the towel over her shoulder, her ponytail swinging as she tilted her head. Up close, she was even more striking, skin, strong eyes that seemed to see right through my shades. She was probably 38, maybe a little younger, with this athletic grace that made her stand out in the chaos of the beach. The sun was high, baking the sand, and the air smelled of sunscreen and salt water. Somewhere nearby, a kid shrieked, and a speaker blasted a Drake song. I adjusted my grip on the stick, ready to shuffle away and get back to my dumb plan, but she didn't move. "You been blind long?" she asked, her tone casual, like she was asking about the weather, but her eyes were sharp, studying every twitch of my face. I froze, my brain scrambling. A while," I said, keeping it vague, my voice catching just enough to sound nervous, which honestly I was. I tapped the stick on the ground, trying to sell, but my mind was racing. What kind of question was that? Was she just being polite, or was she on to me? I couldn't tell. Her lips pressed into a thin line, not quite a smile, and she nodded slowly. "Must be tough," she said, but there was something in her voice, curiosity maybe, or suspicion. "You seem to get around okay, though." I shrugged, forcing a small laugh. "Practice, I guess." My palms were sweaty, and I prayed she couldn't see my eyes darting behind the sunglasses. She didn't walk away. Instead, she started moving toward the changing rooms, the exact direction I was supposed to go for Ryan's stupid prank. "Mind if I walk with you?" she asked, falling into step beside me. It wasn't really a question, more like a statement. I swallowed hard, nodding. "Sure, no problem." My buddies were probably watching from their spot by the volleyball nets, Ryan's phone aimed at me, snickering their asses off. I kept my pace slow, tapping the stick, trying to look like I was navigating by sound. The beach was a minefield: coolers, beach chairs, kids running with plastic shovels. I sidestepped a folding chair without thinking, my foot brushing the sand just right to avoid it. She noticed. I could feel her eyes on me like a hawk watching a mouse. We passed a group of teens tossing a frisbee, and I dodged a stray one that sailed close, my reflexes kicking in before I could stop them. "Nice move," she said, her voice light but pointed. I mumbled something about hearing it coming, but my throat was tight. She was keeping pace, her sandals kicking up small puffs of sand, the towel swinging lightly on her shoulder. Then out of nowhere, she dropped a plastic water bottle right in front of me. It hit the sand with a soft thud, rolling just enough to stop at my feet. Instinct took over. I stepped over it cleanly like it was nothing. My stomach sank as soon as I did it. I should have tripped or at least hesitated, but my body moved before my brain caught up. I heard her let out a small, sharp laugh, like she just won a bet with herself. I kept walking, tapping the stick harder, now trying to cover my mistake, but she wasn't letting it go. She sped up, stepping in front of me, her arms crossed. "Hold up," she said, her voice firm, cutting through the noise of the beach waves, laughter, a distant ice cream truck jingle. "What exactly are you doing?" Her eyes were locked on mine, or at least where mine would be if not for the sunglasses. I could feel the sweat on my neck, not just from the sun. "Just walking," I said, my voice coming out weaker than I meant. "Getting some air." She raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a half smile that wasn't friendly or angry, just knowing. "Walking," she repeated, dragging out the word. "Right." I shifted my weight, the stick feeling heavier in my hand. "Yeah, just exploring the beach." I was digging myself deeper, and I knew it. My buddy's plan was crumbling, and I was standing here looking like the world's worst actor. She tilted her head, her ponytail catching the sunlight. "You're good at dodging stuff for someone who can't see," she said, her tone dry, almost teasing. "Chairs, frisbees, bottles. Pretty impressive." I forced a laugh, my mind racing for an excuse. "Just good hearing, I guess." She didn't buy it. Her smile widened, but it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile you give someone when you've caught them red-handed. "Look," I said, trying to pivot, "I'm not trying to cause trouble, just out here, enjoying the day." My voice sounded thin, unconvincing even to me. The beach was still alive around us, kids splashing in the shallows, a guy strumming a guitar, the smell of hot dogs from a nearby stand. But it felt like the world had narrowed to just me and her standing there in the sand. She uncrossed her arms, resting one hand on her hip. "Enjoying the day," she echoed, her voice dripping with skepticism. "Near the women's changing rooms." My face burned, and I was glad for the sunglasses. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but nothing good came out. "It's not like that," I stammered. "I'm just lost." She laughed, then a real laugh, short and sharp, like I just told the worst joke she'd ever heard. "Lost?" she said, shaking her head. "You're not lost, kid. You're up to something." The way she said "kid" stung, not because it was mean, but because it was accurate. I was 22, acting like a dumb teenager, and she saw right through it. I gripped the stick tighter, my mind scrambling for a way out. Should I just admit it, laugh it off, run back to the guys and call it a day? But something about her kept me rooted, her confidence, the way she stood there unfazed, like she'd dealt with worse than me and my stupid prank. She took a step closer, her eyes narrowing slightly. "So what's the deal?" she asked, her voice low now, almost conspiratorial. "You and your friends over there." She nodded toward the volleyball nets, where I knew Ryan was probably still filming. "What's the game?" My heart sank. She'd seen them too. Of course she had. Those sharp eyes didn't miss a thing. I opened my mouth, ready to spit out another weak excuse, but she cut me off, her arms crossing again. "You think I'm going to buy that just walking story?" she said, her half smile back, daring me to try again. I stood there, stick in hand, sunglasses slipping down my nose, feeling like the biggest idiot on the beach. The sun beat down, the waves kept crashing, and somewhere my friends were probably losing it, watching me crash and burn. This was supposed to be a joke, a quick laugh for the group chat. Instead, I was face to face with a woman who'd already figured me out, and I had no idea what to say next. I stood there, frozen in the sand, the driftwood stick even heavy in my hand and sunglasses slipping down my nose. The beach was alive, waves crashing, kids laughing, a seagull screeching as it swooped for a stray chip. But all I could focus on was her, the woman with the sharp eyes and the towel over her shoulder, standing with her arms crossed, her half smile slicing through my pathetic attempt at an excuse. "You think I'm going to buy that just walking story?" She said, her voice low, teasing, but with a steel edge that told me she wasn't playing. My heart was pounding, not just because I'd been caught, but because she was looking at me like I was a puzzle she'd already solved. I was Jake, 22, the guy who thought a dumb prank would be a quick laugh. Now I was stuck facing a woman who saw right through me. She tilted her head, her ponytail catching the sunlight, and took a step closer. "If I call security right now," she said, her tone calm but pointed, "how are you going to explain this? The stick, the shades, the whole act." She gestured at me, her hand waving at the driftwood and my cheap sunglasses like they were props in a bad play. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My brain was blank like a computer crashing mid-update. I could feel the sweat on my back, the sun baking me, the smell of salt water and sunscreen thick in the air. My buddies were probably still watching from the volleyball nets, Ryan's phone capturing every second of my humiliation. But I couldn't look at them. I couldn't look anywhere but at her. I swallowed, trying to find my voice. I wouldn't know what to say. I admitted my words coming out quieter than I meant. It was the truth, and it felt like the only thing I could say without digging myself deeper. Her eyes narrowed, but that half smile stayed, like she was enjoying this a little too much. "Let me help you out," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You dodged that chair back there like a pro stepped over my bottle without missing a beat. Oh, and when that girl walked by in the red bikini, you turned your head just enough to notice." She paused, letting each word land like a dart. "Pretty good for someone who's supposed to be blind." My face burned, and I was glad for the sunglasses hiding my eyes. She'd seen everything, every stupid mistake I'd made trying to play this role. I wanted to sink into the sand, disappear into the ocean, anything to get out of this moment. But she wasn't done. "So," she said, crossing her arms tighter, "what's the deal? You and your friends cooking up some TikTok stunt, or is this just for kicks?" Her tone was light, almost playful, but her eyes were locked on me, sharp and unyielding. I felt like a kid caught sneaking cookies, except this was way worse. I laughed, a nervous, shaky sound, trying to pivot. "Look, it's not a big deal," I said, forcing a grin. "Just messing around, beach vibes, having fun." I waved the stick, vaguely, like it could explain everything. She raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Messing around," she repeated, her voice flat. "Near the women's changing rooms with a fake cane and shades. That's your idea of fun." I winced. When she put it like that, it sounded bad. Really bad. I scrambled for something to say, anything to lighten the mood. "Okay, yeah, it's dumb," I said, leaning into the joke. "But it's not like I'm a creep or anything. Just a stupid bet with my friends. You ever do something dumb just 'cause it sounded funny at the time?" Her smile widened, but it wasn't friendly. It was the kind of smile that said she had me exactly where she wanted me. "Oh, I've done dumb things," she said, her voice smooth, almost dangerous. "But I don't pretend to be something I'm not to do them." Ouch. That one hit. I shifted my weight, the sand hot under my flip-flops, the stick feeling like a lead weight now. "Fair point," I said, trying to keep it light, "but like it's just a prank, no harm done, right?" I flashed what I hoped was a charming grin, the kind that usually got me out of trouble with teachers or my mom. But she wasn't my mom, and she definitely wasn't charmed. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the faint coconut of her sunscreen. "So what's the real reason?" she asked, her voice low, like she was daring me to lie again. "Why are you out here playing blind man by the changing rooms?" Her eyes were relentless, pinning me in place. I could have bolted, dropped the stick, ditched the sunglasses, and sprinted back to Ryan and the guys, but something kept me there. Maybe it was the way she wasn't yelling, wasn't calling for help, just standing there, waiting for me to come clean. Or maybe it was something else, her confidence, the way her voice stayed steady, the way her eyes didn't waver. I don't know, but I couldn't move. I just wanted to see what it'd be like, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. You know, to feel what it's like to not see for a bit. It was the worst lie I'd ever told, and I knew it the second it left my mouth. Her laugh was immediate, sharp, and genuine, cutting through the beach noise like a blade. What it's like to not see, she said, shaking her head. You mean the feeling of getting caught, 'cause you're nailing that one. I couldn't help it. I laughed too, a real one, despite the panic in my chest. She was quick, sharp, and I was starting to realize I was way out of my league. Okay, okay, I said, holding up my hands, the stick dangling uselessly. You got me. It's a dumb prank. My friends thought it'd be funny to, hang out here, film it, laugh later. That's it. I shrugged, hoping honesty might earn me some points. Her smile faded, but her eyes stayed locked on me like she was weighing whether to let me off or not. Your friends, she said, glancing toward the volleyball nets. The ones who are probably filming this right now. I nodded, my face hot. Yeah, they're idiots. I'm an idiot. We're all idiots. For a moment, she didn't say anything, just studied me. The sun was still high, the air thick with the smell of salt and fried food, the beach. Alive with laughter and music. But it was just us in that moment, her standing there, me holding a stick that felt more like a scarlet letter. Then something shifted in her expression. Not anger, not amusement, but something softer, like she was seeing me for the first time. I'm not calling security, she said finally, her voice low. Not yet. But she paused, letting the word hang, and my stomach twisted. If you want to keep this little act up, you're going to have to do better than that. I blinked, not sure if she was joking or serious. What do you mean? I asked, my voice cautious. She smiled again, this time slower, almost like a challenge. I mean, she said, stepping back, her towel shifting on her shoulder. Come with me. Let's see how long you can keep this performance going. She turned, starting to walk toward the boardwalk, her stride confident, her ponytail swaying. I stood there, stick in hand, heart racing, torn between running back to my friends and following her around. There was something about her voice, her laugh, the way she called my bluff. Without missing a beat, that pulled me in like a wave I didn't see coming. Yo, you coming or what? She called over her shoulder, not looking back. I adjusted my sunglasses, gripped the stick, and took a step forward, my flip-flops sinking into the sand. Yeah, I said, more to myself than to her. I'm coming. I followed her, the driftwood stick, tapping the sand, the sunglasses heavy on my nose, feeling more like a costume than ever. The beach was still buzzing, Santa Monica in full summer swing, kids kicking up waves, couples sprawled on towels, and the smell of sunscreen and hot dogs hanging in the air. She walked ahead, her stride, confident, towel slung over her shoulder, ponytail bouncing with each step. I could have ditched the act right then, tossed the stick, and sprinted back to Ryan and the guys who were probably still filming, laughing their asses off, but I didn't. Something about her sharp eyes, her half smile, the way she called my bluff without breaking a sweat, kept me moving forward, like I was caught in her orbit. She led me toward the boardwalk, where the crowd thickened, tourists snapping photos, vendors hawking sunglasses, a guy juggling for tips. She stopped abruptly to chat with a woman selling lemonade, leaving me standing there, stick in hand, feeling like a prop in a play I didn't sign up for. Hey, good to see you, she said to the woman, her voice bright like she hadn't just caught me in the dumbest prank of my life. I shifted my weight, tapping the stick, trying to look like I was just existing. A couple of kids ran by, one nearly knocking into me, and I sidestepped without thinking, my reflexes betraying me again. She glanced over, her eyes catching mine through the sunglasses, and I swore I saw her smirk. The lemonade lady handed her a cup, and she turned back to me, sipping through a straw. You hear that? She asked, her voice casual but laced with something else. The music over there sounds like what, reggae? I froze, my brain scrambling. There was music, a faint Bob Marley riff from a speaker near the pier, but she wasn't asking about the music. She was testing me. Yeah, I said, tilting my head like I was listening hard. Sounds like it. She raised an eyebrow, taking another sip. You hear a lot for someone who doesn't see, she said, her tone light, but it pointed. Like that girl in the yellow hat who just walked by. You heard her right? I swallowed, my throat dry. I had turned my head when the girl passed, not even thinking, just following the sound of her laugh. Yeah, her voice was loud, I mumbled, gripping the stick tighter. She didn't call me out, not directly. Instead, she kept walking, weaving through the crowd, her sandals kicking up small puffs of sand. I followed, trying to keep my steps slow, deliberate, like I was still playing the part. But it was hard. The beach was a maze, Cooler's Beach, bags, a stray volleyball rolling past. I dodged them all too smoothly, and every time I did, I could feel her watching. She stopped again, this time to say hi to a guy in a lifeguard shirt, his whistle glinting in the sun. Hey, Mike, she said, her voice easy, friendly. This is my friend. What's your name again? She turned to me, her smile innocent but sharp, like a blade wrapped in silk. Jake, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I adjusted the sunglasses, hoping they hid the panic in my eyes. The lifeguard Mike gave me a quick nod, glancing at the stick and shades. Nice to meet you, man, he said, then turned back to her. You guys enjoying the beach? She grinned, leaning in just a little. Oh, Jake's having a blast. He's got selective vision, picks up on the important stuff. Mike laughed, not getting the jab, but I felt it like a punch. My face burned and I forced a smile, tapping the stick on the ground like it was my lifeline. She was toying with me and I was stuck, half embarrassed, half impressed by how easily she was running the show. We kept moving her, leading me, trailing like a kid who had been sent to the principal's office. She didn't let up, tossing out little traps every few steps. You hear that dog barking? She'd ask, pointing toward a golden retriever chasing a ball. I'd nod, mumbling something about the sound carrying, but then I'd catch myself turning my head when a skateboarder zipped by my eyes, following the motion before I could stop them. She noticed every time, her lips twitching, her eyebrow lifting just enough to let me know I wasn't fooling her. You're quick, she said once after I stepped around a kid's sandcastle without missing a beat. Must be all that practice. I laughed, nervous, trying to play it off. Yeah, muscle memory. I was starting to wonder why I hadn't just bolted. I could have dropped the stick, admitted the whole thing was a stupid joke, and gone back to the guys, but there was something about her confidence, the way she teased without being cruel, the way her eyes seemed to see everything, and still gave me a chance to explain myself. It wasn't just that she was pretty, though she was, with her tan skin and athletic frame, her ponytail catching the breeze. It was how she carried herself, like she'd seen enough of the world to know when someone was full of it. But she was still here, walking with me, not yelling or calling security. That kept me going, even as I felt like the biggest idiot on the beach. We reached a quieter spot near a stone bench, the crowd thinning as we got farther from the pier. The sun was lower now, painting the sky orange, the waves glinting like they were on fire. She sat, gesturing for me to join her. I hesitated, then sank onto the bench, the stick resting awkwardly against my leg. The sunglasses felt heavy, like they were mocking me. She leaned back, her towel folded over her lap, and looked out at the ocean. For the first time in a while, she didn't say anything. The silence was intense, but it wasn't comfortable either. It was like she was giving me a moment to breathe, or maybe to confess. The wind carried the salt of the sea, cooling the sweat on my neck, and I could hear the faint hum of a guitar from somewhere down the beach. I shifted my flip-flops, digging into the sand. Okay, I said, breaking the quiet. You're not buying this, are you? She turned her head, her eyes meeting mine through the shades. Not for a second, she said, her voice soft but firm. But I'm curious, why keep it up? You could have run off by now. I laughed, a real one this time, because she was right. Honestly, I don't know, I said. Maybe because you're not letting me off easy. She smiled, a real smile, not the teasing one she'd been using. You're not wrong, she said. But Jake, people who are really blind, they see more than you think. Her words hung there, light but heavy, like they meant more than I could catch right then. I looked out at the ocean, the waves rolling in steady and endless. The stick was still in my hand, the sunglasses still on my face, but they felt like relics of a plan that had crashed and burned. She wasn't just calling me out. She was challenging me, not with anger, but with something else, something that made my chest tighten in a way I didn't expect. I wanted to say something clever, to keep up with her, but all I could manage was a nod. Yeah, I said, my voice low. I'm starting to get that. She stood brushing sand off her towel and looked down at me, her smile back, that mix of amusement and something warmer. Come on, she said, starting to walk again. Let's see how long you can keep this up. I stood adjusting the sunglasses, gripping the stick, and followed her. My heart still racing, not just from getting caught, but from the way she looked at me, like she saw me, not just the idiot with the stick, but something more. The sun was dipping lower now, painting the Santa Monica beach in shades of orange and pink, the kind of sunset that makes you stop and stare, even if you are in a hurry. The air was cooler, carrying the sharp tang of salt water and the faint greasy sweetness of fried food from the pier. I trailed behind her, my driftwood stick tapping the sand, the sunglasses heavy on my nose, feeling more like a costume than ever. She walked with that same confident stride, her towel slung over her shoulder ponytail, swaying like it had a rhythm of its own. The beach was still alive. Kids building sandcastles, couples snapping selfies, a guy on a unicycle weaving through the crowd. But it felt like the world had narrowed to just us, her leading me, following, caught in this strange dance of half-truths and sharp glances. We were heading back toward the changing rooms, the wooden structure looming ahead, its faded signs barely legible in the fading light. I could feel my pulse in my throat, not just because of the prank gone wrong, but because of her voice, her eyes, the way she'd turned my dumb plan into a game she was winning. My buddies were probably still back at the volleyball nets, Ryan's phone long since put away, wondering where I'd gone. I should have been with them, cracking a soda, laughing about how I'd almost pulled it off. Instead, I was here, stick in hand, trying to keep up with a woman who'd seen through me from the first stumble. She stopped abruptly, just a few feet from the changing rooms, and turned to face me. The crowd had thinned out here, the noise of the beach fading into a low hum, waves, distant laughter, a seagull's cry. Her eyes locked on mine, or at least where mine were behind the sunglasses, and that half smile was back, the one that made me feel like I was being weighed and measured. All right, Jake, she said, her voice low, steady with just a hint of amusement. This is where your little adventure started, right? She nodded toward the changing rooms, her towel shifting slightly on her shoulder. I swallowed my grip, tightening on the stick. Yeah, I said, trying to sound casual, but my voice came out tight. Something like that. She crossed her arms, her head tilting just enough to make her ponytail catch the last of the sunlight. So level with me, she said, her tone light but cutting. Next time you want to what? Get a better view? Just ask. It's a lot easier than this. She gestured at the stick and sunglasses. This whole sad act. Her words hit like a wave, not angry, not mean, just sharp enough to make me wince. She'd known from the start, hadn't she? The bottle, the chair, the way I'd turned my head, she'd clocked every slip, every moment I forgot to play blind. And she wasn't mad, not really. She was just calling it what it was, a dumb, childish prank. I stood there, the stick heavy in my hand, my face burning under the sunglasses. Yeah, okay, I stammered, my usual charm nowhere to be found. It was stupid, I'm sorry. The words felt small, inadequate, but they were all I had. She didn't laugh, didn't roll her eyes, just studied me for a long moment, her expression softening just a fraction. You're not the first guy to pull something dumb on this beach, she said, her voice quieter, now almost kind. But you're the first one who stuck around to get called out. There was something in her tone, not pity, not forgiveness, but maybe a grudging respect, like I'd passed some test I didn't even know I was taking. I opened my mouth to say something, another apology, a joke, anything to fill the silence, but she was already moving. She adjusted the towel on her shoulder, her sandals kicking up a small puff of sand, and started walking toward the boardwalk. Wait, I called, my voice louder than I meant. She didn't stop, didn't turn, just kept going, her stride sure and steady, her ponytail swaying in the breeze. The towel hung loose, brushing her arm, and for a second I just watched her, the way she moved through the fading light, like she belonged to the beach, to the sunset, to this moment. I wanted to follow, to say something that would make her stop, but my feet stayed planted, the stick and sunglass, anchoring me to my own stupidity. She didn't look back, not once. Her figure grew smaller, blending into the crowd near the pier, until she was just a silhouette against the orange sky. I stood there alone, the changing rooms behind me, the ocean stretching out to my left. The stick felt pointless, now the sunglasses too like props from a play that had ended. I pulled them off, blinking against the light, and dropped the stick into the sand. It landed with a soft thud, half buried, a relic of a plan that had gone so wrong. My friends were probably still at the volleyball nets waiting for me to come back with some epic story, but I didn't feel like laughing. I didn't feel like going back either. I sank onto a nearby bench, the stone cool against my legs, and stared out at the waves. The beach was quieter now, the families packing up the music from the speakers, fading as the crowd thinned. The air smelled of salt and seaweed, the breeze carrying a chill as the sun dipped below the horizon. I replayed the whole thing in my head and the way I had bumped into her, the bottle test, her sharp questions, that final jab about asking next time. She hadn't been angry, not really. She'd just seen me, all of me, the dumb 22-year-old who thought a prank would be funny, and she'd called it out without making a scene. And somehow that made it worse. I wasn't just embarrassed. I was curious about her, about why she hadn't just walked away, why she'd spent half an hour playing along, teasing me, testing me. I leaned back, my hands in my pockets, the sunglasses dangling from my fingers. The guys would probably give me hell for this, for bailing on the prank, for getting caught by some random woman on the beach. But she wasn't random, not anymore. I didn't even know her name, but I could still see her, the way her eyes had pinned me in place, the way her laugh had cut through my excuses, the way she'd walked off without looking back. There was something about her, something real, something that made my dumb stunt feel smaller than it already was. I got up, brushing sand off my shorts, and started walking back to the volleyball nets. The sky was a deep purple, now the lights from the pier glowing in the distance. I could hear Ryan's laugh before I saw him, probably telling some exaggerated story about the day. "Yo, Jake," he shouted when he spotted me. "Where's the Oscar-worthy footage?" The guys cracked up, expecting me to launch into some epic tale, but I just shrugged, tossing the sunglasses into the cooler. "Got busted," I said, keeping it short. They groaned, ribbing me, but I didn't care. My mind was somewhere else, back by the changing rooms, with a woman whose name I didn't know, but whose face I couldn't shake. I came to the beach for a laugh, for a weekend of sun and dumb bets with my friends. I left with a lesson, one I didn't expect and wasn't sure I fully understood yet. It wasn't just about getting caught or about the prank blowing up in my face. It was about her, about the way she'd seen through me and still let me walk away, about the way her words, "People who are really blind see more than you think," kept echoing in my head. I didn't know if I'd see her again, didn't know if I'd even get the chance to ask her name. But as I grabbed a soda from the cooler and joined the guys, the ocean stretching out dark and endless behind us, I knew one thing for sure. On that sun-soaked Santa Monica beach, Jake's ill-fated prank, pretending to be blind for a quick laugh, spiraled into a humbling lesson about honesty and accountability. What began as a carefree summer stunt, egged on by friends and fueled by youthful bravado, unraveled when a sharp-eyed woman saw through his act. Her piercing questions and unrelenting gaze stripped away Jake's flimsy excuses, exposing not just the prank's foolishness, but the deeper cost of pretending to be something he wasn't. She didn't shame him. Instead, her calm, knowing confidence forced Jake to confront his own immaturity. Her word, "People who are really blind see more than you think," lingered, a reminder that true perception goes beyond physical sight. It's about understanding empathy and owning up to our actions. This encounter wasn't just a moment of getting caught. It was a mirror held up to Jake's choices, showing him that reckless jokes can disrespect others' realities. Yet her decision to challenge rather than condemn offered Jake a chance to grow, to step away from the prank with a newfound respect for authenticity. This story speaks to us all. Life's most profound lessons often come from our mistakes, especially when someone sees us for who we are and holds us accountable with grace. It's a call to embrace honesty, to think before we act, and to recognize the weight of our choices, even in moments that seem trivial. Have you ever been caught in a moment that made you rethink your actions? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you grew from it. If this tale resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and join our community for more stories that spark reflection and connection. Let's learn from each other.